Before we begin, just a quick disclaimer. You might encounter strong language. Oops. We also want to be clear that the things we say are our opinions and in should no way be taken as medical health or dietary advice. We also are aware that we have certain privileged experiences and therefore we are not able to be representative. And we don't even aim to be representative of all the things that people have lived and felt that we have not. I'm fat and I tend to make a joke about the word motivation by spelling it moti-vation. So,
I mean, this is going to sound like it's personal, but it's not. But maybe it is. I'm fat, and I don't think fat jokes are funny. So,
well, they're not, but I'm fat and I'm guilty of making the joke about swimming pools. You know, the one Pallavi in, water out. So,
no, I don't know that joke, and it's not a joke. It's physics.
jeez.
I'm fat, and I think it's okay to be proud of myself. So,
You betcha. I'm fat and I don't think people falling is funny. So,
yeah, I don't think it's not funny, people. Anyway, I'm fat, and I love it when I make people laugh, but not by laughing at myself. So,
welcome to Fatso, the podcast where we talk about the joys and sorrows of being fat women in India, heavy on the joy. I'm Pallavi.
and I'm Ameya, and today we're talking about self-deprecation. Now, before I begin to expound on the subject, our recording location is a bit unusual today. We are delighted that we're actually recording together for the first time in, I think, a year, Aram se na. But sadly, that also involves, you might hear crows, parakeets, my cats, etc. So, advance warning and apologies. My sound editing skills are not at the level where I can remove all of that. Yeah? Right, so what exactly is self-deprecation? I asked our good friend Google Mummy, and she said, modesty about or criticism of oneself. All right, that doesn't sound like a bad thing, no? It's not bad to be modest about yourself or to be able to criticize yourself. In fact, it's important. No one likes an arrogant person who's always saying, you know what I did? I'm so smart, I'm so clever, I'm so blah, blah, blah. Right? Well, it's not that simple. Of course. Otherwise, why would we be doing an episode about it?
True.
So, I don't know if you guys have seen Hannah Gadsby's Netflix special, Nanette. Hannah is a New Zealander. Okay, she's a comedian from New Zealand, and she has this utterly gut-wrenching, destructive special that was just unbelievable, and everyone should watch it. It's hilarious, it'll break your heart, and it'll completely shake you up and teach you how to see the world differently. In that special, she says, on the subject of self-deprecation, I have built a career out of self-deprecating humor, and I don't want to do that anymore. Do you understand what self-deprecation means when it comes from the margins? It's not humility, it's humiliation. I put myself down in order to speak, in order to seek permission to speak, and I simply will not do that anymore, not to myself or anybody who identifies with me. If that means that my comedy career is over, then so be it. And that right there, all you cool cats and kittens, is the problem with self-deprecation. There is the idea that self-deprecation is humility. It's like, oh yeah, no man, come on, it's not such a big deal. But if you are somebody who's constantly being told that you are not worthy of anything, or you have less value than other people, or that your opinion or your achievements don't matter, when you do self-deprecation, it's actually it's performative humiliation. You're like saying, no, listen. I will shit on myself, you don't shit on me, then at least let me own my own shit. I don't clean your shit off of myself, right? So when it comes from a healthy place, when you know that you are just trying to be like, yeah guys, I know I'm cool, but I don't want to be like an asshole about it, that's fine. But it's so terrible when it comes from a place that's steeped in shame and rejection. When you're told by society to be so ashamed of yourself, to desperately desire invisibility, to want to just disappear, to vanish, to cease to exist because you cannot stand the pain of being rejected again. Self-deprecation gives you the ability to just signal to the rest of society that you know your worth, apni औकात समझती हूँ, and that you're not going to aspire to more than that. And that's why it's so fucked up. Because the thing is, the more you tell yourself you're worthless, the less you can hear anything or anyone telling you you have value. And that is a vicious cycle of hell, right? And the thing is, we also turn it into a joke. I mean, I definitely know many fat people I know, many fat women I know are funny. They're sharp, they're bright, they're intelligent, but they're like, I know I have no value in this market. So you know what? I'm going to tell all these jokes. I'm going to be the funny one. She's going to be the funny one. Of course, I'm definitely not the hot one. Ha! It makes other people feel like you've given them permission to think what they want. Because you're like, she's only saying it, no. Oh, of course she's fine. Oh, right? But it also reinforces your own belief in your worthlessness. And it's such a, but the fucked up thing about it is it does it in such a way that someone on the outside will just be like, yeah, she's making jokes about it, so she's clearly chill with it. This is not something that bothers her. When actually deep inside it destroys you. Because this is what I used to do. I used to make the fat joke first. So that I would be the person they were laughing with, not laughing at, right? But actually, I would eventually tell my close friends that don't make fat jokes because they hurt my feelings. And people would be like, but why are you so chill? You know, we're not talking about you. And I'm like, yeah, but it still feels like you're talking about me, right? But I was actually able to have those conversations with my friends, and some of them listened, some of them, of course, didn't. But that's just the point. So self-deprecation can be really valuable, and again, much like shame, is really important. But it's when it gets twisted up and used in this deeply psychotic way, that's when it's really a problem.
You know, it's horrible. And actually, I don't think I can say it loud enough or with enough emphasis or often enough. I mean, we've done a whole episode on rejection, but I really feel that self-deprecation is the evil, sadistic, ugly side of rejection. You know, it's the side of rejection where we weaponize that rejection against ourselves. I mean, forget the rest of the world. This is where we turn on ourselves and literally nuke ourselves with the world's toxicity, right? And we obliterate our self-esteem with our own hands. I mean, that's what self-deprecation feels to me. It's not that you're making a joke. You're making a joke because, exactly as you said, you reduce your value to so little, you know, that you allow. I mean, it's like, and we do it in the hope, the hope that with this, at least we may be accepted, or we may have someone to engage with us or to pay attention to us, I mean, can it be worse? It's like I'm laying on the floor. I'm actually managing somehow to kick myself. And ooh, I'm getting a laugh out of you, which means maybe you like me.
Yep.
I mean,
it's horrible.
It adds insult to injury to, I mean, as I said, I can't say loud enough or often enough. Now, if I could embellish this horror with a little science, it's what you said, that sometimes when you hear enough of that horrible stuff about yourself, you stop being able to listen to the good stuff, right?
Yep.
And why does this happen? So bear with me here. This is a little bit of science. So we go step 1, 2, 3, 4. So the first thing is that the brain gets high on making connections. It's literally like a fix to the brain. It's why we enjoy something new, something thrilling, etc. Because when we form those new connections, it's like a high. Now, the second part to this is if you keep making the same connections over and over again, that particular neural network gets stronger and stronger. Now, why that's important is because the brain is an efficient machine. So it likes to have more energy to create those new connections, to navigate life, to deal with what is happening in the real world. So what it does is when a connection keeps being strengthened, it likes to create automatic pathways out of that. So it can push it aside and it becomes your default setting. Okay, now, if you demean yourself often enough, then the joke is literally on you, right? Because it becomes your default go-to network in terms of how you think about yourself. Now, apply that to when you're thinking of applying to a job, or you're in a stress situation, or you're negotiating for higher pay or whatever else have you, or you're dating someone, or you're trying to get out of an abusive situation.
Oh, yeah.
What's going to happen, what you're going to say to yourself is that you're not good enough because you've already created that default network. Yeah. And there's even worse news, which is that once you form these networks, they live within you forever. Okay, well, exaggeration, but basically till the end of the brain, which is forever in this lifetime, right? The only saving grace is that new connections can be formed. And if you emphasize those new connections often enough, they can override that neural network that you've created of those old connections.
Right.
But you have to practice it enough, right? And sometimes our networks of self-deprecation, rejection, not feeling good enough get formed over 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. And then we figure out that no, we can think differently of ourselves. And you take another so many years to form those new connections. But the old connections will always be there, and they may always get triggered. I mean, that's how harmful self-deprecation, directing humor at yourself, creating that emotional feedback to yourself about how worthless, useless, etc. you are, is.
It when you talk about it seems like common sense, right? But actually it's and you can work really hard and make these new pathways happen and so on and so forth, but just because of the time that you spent reinforcing them and deliberately or inadvertently in your life, you'll always default to them without even realizing it. Like, I was talking to my sister the other day about something, and I was saying something like, oh yeah, I'm the one who always screws up, I've never succeeded at anything. And she's like, why do you say these things? Would you say that to someone else? I said, no, you're absolutely right. I don't believe this, I don't think this, but this is how deeply coded it is in me that if I'm not paying attention to it, it just falls out of my mouth,
Yeah.
But if I think back on my own experiences with self-deprecation, I mean, obviously, like I said, I was the one telling the fat jokes, right? If I said them first, then people were not laughing at me, they were laughing with me, which is important, especially when you don't fit in many ways and you're trying to adjust yourself into adolescence, and God, teenagers are mean. And I also told myself constantly that I was really lucky to be getting whatever it is I got. So like any attention from a guy is like, oh my God, at least you're getting this because you're so worthless and shit, you should get nothing. And then what happens? You accept some terrible treatment because you're like, no, it's okay, at least he's still my friend. And it's not even necessarily emotional, huh? Like, it's not even necessarily romantic. It doesn't have to be a guy, it doesn't have to be a relationship, it can be anybody. Because your teachers who treat you badly, but suddenly once in a while say good job, you're like, oh my God, I'm so lucky that I got this one chance, and it's deeply screwed up, and it ends and puts you in these friendships that are so terribly bad for you, that you just assume that yes, everything is my fault, I'm the screw up, I'm ruining everything. No wonder I'm making them upset because I'm so stupid and I'm so pointless. And mind you, none of this is conscious, right? It's just bubbling up out of your hide, in the sense that you are like, yeah, of course, that makes sense. I guess it's my fault. Or you don't speak up and say, no, this behavior is not okay. Or, I deserve better. None of those things. And when you consider how this opens you up to being abused and manipulated in your life, it's horrifying.
Yeah.
And this is what systemic fat phobia does to everybody. And everybody around you also will have internalized it. In some ways, fat person, less valuable, I guess. But I mean, she's lucky she's got a boyfriend. I mean, I guess he's cheating on her, but whatever, man, at least she has a boyfriend.
Oh, God.
Things like that. No one said that to me, but these are the kinds of things you'll hear. Pallavi's face, guys. It's like,
Yikes.
And I'm like, listen, I've had precisely one boyfriend and he never cheated on me. Anyway, so I've been told I'm too loud, I'm too much. Tone yourself down. So then I would just be like, no, I refuse to tone myself down. I refuse to be a good fatty in that sense. But then I would open by saying, yeah, guys, this is me. I'm like this. I'm loud. I'm funny. I'm opinionated. Like on my OKC profile, I think it still says the first thing that people notice about me. And the response is size and volume. And it may or may not be true, but this is my point. I'm putting it out there. I'm fat and I'm loud. And you know what? You already know this. So you're going to complain later that you didn't know. Plus, look at me, I'm funny. Because it is kind of funny when you say it like that, right? But it's so fucked up. And the thing is, when you are the person who says it, you feel that you have control over the narrative, right? So you feel like, yes, I'm the one who's saying that I'm fat, so it's not that I'm a victim in this case.
Yeah.
But actually, you are a victim of the larger fat stigma narrative that you should be worthless, right? Because actually, what you need to control is the idea that it's not cool to be loud or opinionated or too much or fat or short or dark skinned or bald or poor or rich or whatever the fuck, right? Of course, my maximum level of self-deprecation has actually come with taking up physical space. You know, like making jokes about, oh, haha, you sure that chair's strong enough? Or, oh, my standard joke, no, that I say that I have collapsophobia, which is fear that things will collapse when you sit on them or step on them. And it is quite funny, but what the deeper meaning of that is simply the fact that I am so used to the idea that my spaces are never constructed with me in mind that, you know what, before I fall down, like before I break a chair and make a fool out of myself, if I've already said it first, then the joke's not on me.
Yeah.
People can't be laughing at me, you know, and that's so messed up.
No, I agree. And, as you were speaking, I realized something. I mean, how do you set boundaries, right? How do you set boundaries in this sort of a situation? Because you've laughed at yourself. You've already said that about yourself. Now, the other person is thinking that it's okay.
Correct.
Right? Now, how do you go and say, no, this is not okay? Because then suddenly you become uncool. You become, like, is she psycho, for example?
Don't
People
take it
use
so
those words.
seriously. Yeah. One tight slap.
Seriously. And this whole thing of people saying something which is mean, horrible. And then, you say, but why did you say that? And like, come on, yeah, it was a joke. And, they make it gaslighting, basically.
Yeah.
They make it all about you and how you're not cool. Anyway, so my experience was different because to begin with, I was an introvert as a child. And for me, it's all about one-on-one conversations, okay? I'm not very good with groups. I'm still shy when it comes to groups.
She says this after...
A night of revelry, yes. But I have spoken to most of those people one-on-one. So, and then they came together as a group of very loving, intoxicated
That's
people.
True. Oh God, intoxicated. Anyway.
No, but I still do find a lot of people around me overwhelming. Like if there are lots of people and everyone's talking, and especially if everyone's talking over each other, I will definitely get quiet and focus on the food and the drink on the table. So I never had the words to respond to the humor aimed at me. And I was also a bit of a serious person. So I would get angry, I would get defensive, I would burst into tears. And then I'd end up in a worse place than before, right? And I'm talking about 5, 6, 7, I'm talking about being really young with all of this. So then I learned how to laugh with the bullies. Yeah. But that was the worst kind of self-betrayal. And I'd hate myself for doing that because I knew they were being horrible and mean to me. And I would join them and laugh at them. And I felt awful because I felt like a coward. I felt, just ugh. I mean, I'm connecting to those feelings now and I can feel them physically in my body and how shitty they felt. Anyway, so what became worse than that external rejection was the fact that I would then come home and I would stand in front of the mirror and I would look at myself with such hate and anger. Like I remember the look in my eyes when I would look at myself with such self-loathing, and it was loathing for everybody else, but it was directed at me because I was looking into my eyes. And then and then I would give the responses I wish I had given to those people while they were bullying me. So I would talk back to the mirror and, say all of those things. But then it would always end up with my calling myself names. Telling me what a coward I was, how useless and horrible I was, how I had no courage, I could not stand up for myself, etc., etc. And I mean, I talk about mirror work to love oneself, right? And here I was doing the exact opposite. And I mean, if there's anything that I can say to this is that you may not be able to stand in front of the mirror and love yourself, but definitely don't stand in front of the mirror and hate yourself.
Yeah.
Because that's severe projection, and it damaged me. I have to say, it did damage me deeply. This changed when later in school I discovered real friendships, but there was always that nagging feeling that I'm not worthy of love or acceptance or friendship or any of those things. And it's just a matter of time before friends will be disappointed in me.
It's like, when are they going to wake up and realize?
And I think, I mean, I don't feel that now, but there are times when, I'll say something silly or I won't be able to contribute to the conversation. And I'm like, oh my God, am I just such a big disappointment? Like, do I have no value to add? And I mean, you've found me, I mean, you've like called me out on certain occasions where I've done that to myself. So it's as you said, if you're not aware of it, you just slip into that old pattern.
And it's just so damn easy.
It's scary how easy it is actually. And so the interesting thing is, when I was 18 or so, I discovered that I have a very pretty face.
She's doing quote marks. Okay. Her face is very ugly, as you all know.
I mean, that helped hugely. And it also helped that I had a man who was 10 years older to me, gorgeous. Okay. And everyone was like, well, for him. But he was so into me and interested in me. It really helped that, he was expressing all of that love to me then. And I happened to lose oodles of weight. And I was possibly the slimmest I have ever been. And I stumbled upon the fact that I could flirt very well. And this I could do with multiple people at the same time, male or female. Okay. And the other thing, so that became my style of interaction in groups, right? I would be that flirty and either I had a very dirty mind, or actually I think that I have a very intelligent mind that could make connections between objects and sexual reference.
100%.
So then I would be able to, make those jokes or crack those jokes, and it became really sexual and flirty and, everything. And the guys would catch on and the girls wouldn't catch on. And, so then I became really popular with the boys, but which wasn't great because I would make fun of a lot of the girls then.
You become one of the boys.
Yeah.
As you talk about this happened to me as well. I was the one with the dirty man. I was the one who used to tell those jokes. And I became super flirty. Like, I still remember sometimes when I go somewhere to a restaurant or something, and I will chat with the waiters and stuff, and I was like, why are you flirting with the waiter? I'm like, I'm treating him like a human being. But apparently I'm very flirty with men.
Yeah. So anyways, I discovered this skill, and suddenly I was being able to relate and be social and stuff like that, and intersperse all of this personality with a few fat jokes, and voila, I'm the cool girl, I'm the popular girl all of a sudden, and so on and so forth. So, but deep down, I knew I hated myself still, right? This was just the foil. And sometimes, I mean, the thing is that society is also geared to tell you that flirting, having that dirty mind, etc., is also wrong. So while it became my defense mechanism, while it became the way for me to access that attention or that social situation, it made me feel worse about myself in a weird sort of way. Because, it sort of reinforced this whole thing that, you can be popular and all that, but you'll never be the girl they take home to their parents. Because at that time, that was important. Or you'll never be the girl that, they want to spend the rest of their life with. This is just, that makeshift sort of arrangement to keep you from feeling that awesome, crushing loneliness, which you would have felt otherwise. So,
yeah, and I mean, that's the thing, that you're not being a good fatty. Or you are being a good fatty, but you're being a bad girl. Right. So that's the other thing.
Layers.
And it's not something that is particularly easy to come out of. Like, I don't know if you had some sort of moment where you woke up. I never did. I can't even identify when I started to change in my attitude towards this. But I definitely know that I started seeing this behavior in other people, and it made me acutely uncomfortable. Like, I always, even today, if someone says something self-deprecating for no reason, I would poke and be like, why are you saying that? Do you really think that you're useless? Do you really think that you're ugly? Do you really think that you're stupid? And then people get, of course, very uncomfortable as well, because it's not an uncomfortable thing it's not a comfortable thing when someone pokes you about these things. So, yeah, and I think it really, really started driving me crazy, because I had this one friend who was a really amazing cook. And back in those days, there were like, I had these 7 friends, and like 8 of us used to meet almost every weekend for dinner. And we'd do potlucks, and it would circulate whose house and stuff. That was great fun. And this one was a fantastic cook. I mean, she still is, obviously. But she used to do this fucking naughty drama every time. It's not very good, guys. Oh no, guys, it's kind of crap, guys. I'm sorry, it should be so much better. Everything went down the toilet. And like, at first we'd be like, are you mad? This food is amazing. But like, this is happening every week. You know we love your food. You know we're happy with it. Then what is the need to do this drama? So it started irritating me. But only later did I recognize that, yeah, this is actually a form of self-deprecation. And another way that self-deprecation is bad is it becomes a way for you to seek positive reinforcement as well, right?
Yeah.
Because you say this, which of course leads to that thing that drives me crazy, where you say something is bad and people are like, no, of course not. I'm like, one tight slap. Anyway, sorry, tangents. So I used to so then I tried to try and watch out and see if I was doing this too. And obviously I was, right? So then I would try and stop and be like, listen, Maya, you think other people are dumb when they do this? Then why are you doing this? Aren't you the smartest person in the world? Right? So why are you being a dumb person? Ha ha ha. So, that's kind of where it was. But also I feel a huge part of it was just that I just got too old and too cranky and too impatient with myself and the world to put up with it anymore. Because the truth of the matter is that while I definitely came into myself in a big way around about when I turned 30, and like a lot of confidence and lots of things started coming up and things like that, which is great. But I was just like, I still kind of had the patience to be tentative, to engage with the world. Now, as you know, I'm like, bitch, I do not have time for this. I could be asleep. Fundamentally, it boils down to the fact that I spent 5 minutes indulging your nonsense, I could be asleep. You're stealing 5 minutes of my sleep, go die. Right? And that sort of came onto myself as well. Because I'm like, you know perfectly well you're good at your job. Why do you have to act like you're not? Like, why? If you're great with languages. You're a good cook. Why do you have to be like, no, one slap? So I think maybe we should call this episode One Tight Slap. So yeah, the thing is though, the insecurities that lie underneath haven't gone away. I just stopped being self-deprecating about them, right? But clearly have not. Like I said, like I told you, just like earlier on the podcast, that when I talked to my sister and this thing happened, and I was like, huh? And I was like, no, I can't believe I said that. The words are coming out of my mouth, and I'm like, what are you saying? So, but all the therapy and all the work I've done with Judy, especially over the past year or 2020, have got me to a place where I know that my validation comes from me. I get to decide whether I'm valid or not. And frankly, I have also lived and thought and felt and interacted enough to trust my sense of fairness, judgment, my ability to tell whether something is good or bad. And therefore, if I think I'm doing a good job, I think I'm doing a good job. All of you can fuck off. Plain and simple. Which, by the way, is a very liberating place to get to, guys. So I really hope every single one of you gets there. It is awesome. But even so, it's not set in stone, obviously. Nothing about a human being is set in stone. It's always slipping, changing, blah, blah, blah. So obviously I slide and I have to recover sometimes, right? And I expect, I'm going to be working on this my whole life, but I also think that part of being a human being is you're constantly working on yourself. Your work is only done when you die, right?
True.
And I
Words
think it's
of
a beautiful...
truth and wisdom.
Oh, thank you. I think it's a beautiful thing. Because you can constantly keep changing and becoming.
Yeah. No, so if you were to ask me about this whole piece, and I think it's constant vigilance, I swear. And it's vigilance for self-rejection, it's vigilance for self-inflicted pain. Because what we do is we say all of this because, like for example, this friend of yours would say stuff about her own cooking because she wanted to feel safe. When I was a child, I've told Judy this, I may have told you as well. Because my mom, I could never know whether my mom would give me one tight slap or she would give me what I needed. And these were for sometimes really simple things like, Mom, I'm hungry. When we're out in a taxi, or, I'm thirsty, or I need to pee, or, stuff like that, which was not so-called convenient. But as a 3-year-old or 4-year-old, I had the need. And I would literally dig my nails into my palms and, hurt myself that way. Sometimes drawing blood also, before going and asking her for this very basic need that I had as a child. Because it kept me safe. It gave me the courage to speak to her by harming myself.
Interesting.
So a lot of times people put themselves down first because it keeps them safe.
No, of course. That's what I'm saying, right? It's the third. I make the joke first.
Yeah.
So I can control the narrative.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So it's something that and it takes compassion to understand that about yourself. that, the reason I'm indulging in all of these self-sabotaging behaviors is because at the end of the day, I want to be safe.
True.
And the world has not made me feel safe. And therefore, this is my way of acting it out. But there are other ways. So for me, it actually started, this journey, I would say, actually started in 1997. I was 18 years old and I learned Reiki. And I also read the book by Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. So in Reiki, they teach you certain principles. Now, apart from the hands-on healing, etc., they teach you certain principles and you have to follow that for 21 days. It's part of your training. And I wanted to become a Reiki master. So, I had to go through all the levels. So I did the training. And the two that I remember now is just for today, I will not be angry. Or just for today, I will be aware of my anger. And just for today, I will live the attitude of gratitude. Okay. Now, it started off being external to me, but it was transformational because I had to apply it to myself.
Yeah.
So it wasn't about not being angry with people in the bus or, feeling gratitude for being in that bus, but it was also about redirecting those emotions towards myself, right? And taking away a lot of that junk, therefore. So that's where it began. And I then went on to do a whole lot of these other healing practices, techniques, etc., etc. In 2008, I actually did have a moment where all of a sudden I became aware, very acutely aware of the critical voice inside my head. And I realized that voice is separate to mine. I realized that voice had those angry eyes that I would see in the mirror when I would stand in front of it. And that voice had my mother's words. So I suddenly started being able to catch that voice, and see it and know that it was separate to my own voice. Okay, so that was actually quite, I would say, a beautiful moment because so then everything else that I've learned and practiced, etc., has been about dealing with that voice, has been about reducing the negativity and the, shitting on myself that voice does. And I have to say, from 2016 or so, I would say, I have started noticing that voice is very different. That voice is now about love, and it is about support, and it is about comfort. And especially after last year and everything that I've dealt with last year, and a lot of what Judy has helped me do, that voice has become more and more, okay, it's there. Yes, I know you think this way about yourself or whatever, but we can make it. We're going to be okay. We can deal with this. We'll handle it. So that it has turned and become a space of safety within me, which is a very different space. So, but still, constant vigilance.
I know, constant vigilance. Because no matter how much you grow and heal and blah, 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 you're always going to have demons.
Yeah.
And that's just it. I mean, the demons remain the same old demons. And that's the thing sometimes, right? We've been friends with them for so long. And this is what I learned last year, which is to invite them into the room and have a chat with them, and be like, all right, tell me why you're screaming in the basement. I have lots of time, we're in lockdown. I have no social life. Come, sit, tell me. Why are you screaming in the basement? Oh. No, stop screaming. I can't hear you if you scream so much. Okay, scream it out, right? And eventually you get there, but the demons are the same old demons, which is that, we have these voices in our heads, these voices we've inherited from society, these voices we've internalized from family members or lovers or some random person who said something to you once on the road.
Yeah.
Which is like the worst one. Because you're like, why can't I remembering this? But those voices remain, and the fight against self-deprecation for me, I also do like to be funny. I mean, I am funny. And it's quite easy to, I think, for example, I believe very strongly that humor always needs to punch up. You should never laugh at someone who has less power than you. And the safest thing to do then is to laugh at yourself, because mere ko pata hai, I have as much power as I have. So that's the thing. So there is a kind of self-deprecation and a kind of self-deprecating humor that I think is great and it's enjoyable. And sometimes I'll just say it because it's really funny in that moment. But it's very, 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 very easy to slide down that into, I'm useless, I'm shit, all over again, So that's the way I see it as far as demons go.
Yeah, so for me, I think demons is, I still get hurt. I still feel afraid. I still have meltdowns, as you are very well aware.
I don't know, she's my spiritual guru. She doesn't do
Oh, please, give me a break. Anyways, but just as of recently, how I unraveled and went splat.
Yes,
literally.
I know. I was trying to give you a fig leaf, but okay.
Yeah, you were trying to
throw my fig leaf back in my face.
So anyway, all of that still happens and will continue to happen because it's life and there are going to be ups and downs and whatnot. I think my only prayer is that I remain being able to stand by myself, back myself up. I think as long as I have that, I will be okay. And people a lot of people you meet or, who interact with us, etc., say, oh, you're so brave. You have courage. I don't think this is courage. I really think at some point, it's as you said, you become too old or too grumpy or too, it becomes a moment of clarity.
Yeah.
That listen, I am who I am. I can only be that person.
Yeah.
And I can choose to shit on myself for being that person, or I can choose to just say, okay, this is who you are now, let's move forward from here, and allow life then to come to you as it is. So I think that's how it is. While those demons are there, my prayer is, may I be able to see myself with this clarity continually.
Absolutely, and it's really important to become that person for yourself, and that I think is one of the problems of the way society, shocking, the way society is structured, is the fact that you're always supposed to derive all of this from your job, from your partner, from your child, from your parents, from your friends, from your status, and that doesn't really work. And the thing you said about being brave, the other day on Facebook I saw this beautiful meme. I will try and put it on Instagram, where someone on Twitter said, my therapist commented recently that I was very resilient, which is true, but it always makes me sad. I would rather live a life that required less resiliency. A black person tweeted something once about how it's a mistake to see resiliency as something to be proud of, that being able to withstand more suffering and hardship should be condemnation of the world instead of a compliment to the individual. The fact that I survived my hardships while another person did not survive theirs does not make me better or stronger than them. It's not a compliment to them. It's a condemnation of the world that we live in that asks so many of us to endure so much. And it just fucking lit me up because it is so true.
Yeah.
Saying someone is brave, we are not brave. It's a question of survival. Bravery is always a choice.
Yeah.
Right? You always say that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is choosing to face your fear.
Correct.
Right? It's a choice, but it's not a choice. You do it because you have no other options. I do not want to have to fight fat phobia. I do not want to have to fight fat stigma. I do not want to have to work to overthrow the sexist and patriarchal and capitalist structures of our society. But I have no fucking choice.
Yeah.
And on that very positive note, we're going to end this episode. Excellent timing because Kat is now curious about Mike. Danger.
I do think it is a positive note to talk about having that clarity. And that brings us to the end of another episode. This is that somehow in time we've managed to do episode. We are at Fatso Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook and Gmail. Follow, like, share.
And also, I'm assuming if you've heard this, you know about our new feed. But just in case you don't, please do resubscribe to all of us. We are now on Google Podcasts too. Whoop whoop! And the last and most exciting piece of news we have for you is that we have a newsletter. That's right, even more Fatso content in your inbox every Monday. Woohoo! We're still building it up, but you'll definitely find out when we put out new posts, when we have new stuff coming up, when we're doing events, when we're dropping new episodes, of course. So do sign up. It's fatsopodcast.substack.com. That's us, guys. Fatso Podcast. Wherever you want to go, you look for Fatso Podcast, except LinkedIn.
This episode is recorded in only one location, actually. Oh God! See, neural network has been built. So this episode has been recorded in a single location with Ameya and I in front of each other recording after, as she said, a year. Ameya will be doing our edits as always, and our music was recorded by Anand, logo done by Yash, and our photos taken by Suraj.
Ta-da!
Bye.